sort of talent webinar focused on leading forward in the age of human and AI. So that's redesigning management for 2026 and beyond. My name's Craig, and I'm going to be your guide for today's session. I do have an apology to make. If you do hear some drilling in the background, the highways agency has decided to do some drilling right outside my house on this Thursday morning. So apologies if there is anyone from the highway agency on this webinar. Perhaps a nice call into them would be wonderful. So apologies if you can hear some slight background noise. But if this is your first Let's Talk Talent webinar, welcome. And if you're an avid watcher, then welcome back. We have a really packed out session today, so I am going to get cracking straight away. But please do say hello in the chat. Let's get some questions and comments flowing. I know this is a really hot topic and there's a lot of you on today's session. I will come to as many questions as I can throughout the session, but please do share insight with each other. Again, this is a very new topic, something that's happening very, very quickly. So please do share insights. And we're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about something that I imagine, again, most of us are hearing pretty much constantly at the moment, and that's AI and the impact on management specifically. So I'm going to spend about 45 minutes telling you a little bit more around what the challenges are. I'm not going to be telling you how amazing AI is. Hopefully you can make your own mind up around what it looks like and how it is for you. I'm deliberately not going to stand and predict the next 3 years and that we're all going to be managed by AI agents. But what I am going to want to talk about is something much closer to what we can control. So that's people, managers, and work. Because underneath all the noise around AI, I think there's a genuine, interesting question. And I think that is, what does great management look like when increasingly intelligent technology becomes part of everyday work? And more importantly, for us who are in HR and people management roles or people roles, what do we need to do now to prepare our managers for that world? The world of work has sped up. Change isn't new. Technology is changing work, and that isn't new either. Organizations are having to adapt. It also isn't new. What is different is the velocity in which it's happening. And increasingly, it's not implementing one piece of technology, then embedding it, training everybody, and then moving on to the next thing. The technology is evolving while we're still trying to figure out what to do with the latest version. And that creates a very difficult and different challenge for organizations, and particularly managers. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, just to let you know who we are, Let's Talk Talent is a global talent management and organizational development consultancy whose goal is to help organizations get, keep, and grow brilliant people. So I'm deliberately not approaching this today as a technologist, if that's even a phrase, a technologist. There's lots of people who are much better qualified to talk about that, about large language models, AI agents, and exactly what's happening under the bonnet. But I'm more interested, and I hope you are too, on the people question. So what's happening to jobs? What's happening to skills? And what's happening to leadership? And today specifically, what's happening to management? So let's start by going backwards, not too far, just 4 years. Suzanne, you said you are having issues with my sound and vision. Is anyone else having those challenges as well? Apart from potentially a little bit of background noise for drilling? No, thanks, Sam. Perfect, thank you, everyone. So let's start by going backwards, not too far, just 4 years. So let's take our minds back to 2022. House of Dragon has just premiered. Nicki Minaj just tops the charts. Rory McIlroy is on his way to a tour championship. But most importantly, ChatGPT is 3 months from being launched. You haven't heard of it before, but you have heard of this thing called AI and how it's going to change the way of work and the way in which we live and work. So think about your average work week and how you prepared for presentations, how you research something, how you analyze information, and how you wrote important communications, how you solve problems, and compare that to today. How much of your working week would be different? So please share a couple of insights in the chat. What's one thing that you do differently today because of technology or AI that you weren't doing 4 years ago? So think about the way in which it's impacting it could be your work, your day-to-day work. It could be your day-to-day life as well. Kath has come in with recording meetings straight away, meeting minutes. I'm sure everyone has seen the meeting bots joining. I've been on meetings where there's been more bots than people. So yes, absolutely. The meeting minutes, the notes are so precise and accurate, and even summaries of those. Policies and procedures coming through, summaries of letters. Yes, absolutely. That policy and procedures piece is great because you have someone almost as a sounding board to check some of those elements coming through. There's preparing contents, data analysis, holiday planning. Denise, yes, absolutely. I'll come to one of my what I used it for recently around those as well. And there's lots of different things. I have seen things like planning emails, planning, writing documents, lots of different things that are coming through, dictating emails. Thank you so much all for sharing. And what's interesting is that this change has happened really quickly. I bet even if we asked this question, what were you doing differently a year ago, or even 6 months ago, we still would have a long list of things that we're all doing differently. For some, AI has become a stable tool, or staple tool, in fact, of the working week. So it now sits open next to your Outlook calendar, your Outlook emails, your Teams. It may even be integrated with some of those. And for some, it's something that they've experimented with a handful of times. But for others, it may be that I know I should probably be using this, but I'm not entirely sure what to use it for. And all of those are perfectly normal and a perfectly normal place to be. So today we're narrowing that lens. We're going to be looking specifically at AI in the world of management because managers occupy a fascinating position in all of this. They're being asked to be the AI adopters themselves. They're asking or being asked to help their teams adopt it. They're having to manage uncertainty that comes with it. And at exactly the same time, parts of their role are being changed by it. And that's quite an ask. It's quite an impactful role to be in. So let's start with a poll. I know we've already gone to the chat, but let's start with a poll. Because before I tell you what I think, I want to know where you are. So when you think about AI and management, where are you right now? Is it that you're already using it or your managers are already using it? People are experimenting but still figuring it out. There's interested or interest but unsure where to start, slightly overwhelmed by it, or you're completely sick of it, and can we stop talking about it, please? Thank you. See some answers coming through. So people are using it every day, which is brilliant. People are experimenting and still figuring it out, a big proportion as well. We have got some people who are slightly overwhelmed as well. That is perfectly understandable. It's an incredible tool that's advancing really, really quickly and evolving over time as well. Any more before we start looking at the results in a bit more detail? Great. So as you can see, there is a big split. So there's lots of people who are using it and not adopting it, which is fantastic. So a large proportion of, so sort of 45% already using it every day and 45% who are experimenting but still figuring it out. But there is a spread of people who are sick of it, are slightly overwhelmed by it, but unsure where to start, which again, it's really useful to see this because it probably reflects what's exactly happening inside your organization at the moment. We don't have one workforce that are all working towards it together. But everyone is different. We have different confidence levels. We have different attitudes and different starting points as well. And managers need to navigate this this spread of people and preferences within their teams as well. So thank you so much for sharing. Let's dive in. So historically, change and organizational change looks something like this, especially within the technology space. Technology changed. The organization noticed. We all worked out what it meant. We adapted processes, we then trained our managers, and then employees then adapted as part of that. A nice, neat circle. Obviously, it was never quite that neat, but there was generally time for organizations to catch up as it goes through. Now, let's have a look what's changed now. Technology changes, and organizations become aware of that. And the awareness piece is really important. We start to create our strategies, we start to debate policy, we start to think about governance, and we start designing some learning, and that flow starts to look a little different. Because as we're doing that, technology changes again. So we have to readapt, and then it changes again. So meanwhile, whilst we're all figuring out what we need to do and how we govern people to do this, our employees have discovered 3 new tools. Somebody has built their own ChatGPT model. Dave in finance has automated half his job, spending most of his time at the beach without telling anybody, because the cycle has fundamentally changed. And that's why I think we're at an inflection point. It's not simply that technology is changing, it's the speed in which it is changing. And this change in speed matters enormously for managers. So managers have historically been one of the biggest activators of organizational strategy, still are. I would 100% say they still are. Leadership decides where we're going. Managers translate that into real terms. So what does that actually mean for people who are doing the job, doing on the front line, doing the job in itself? They're the communicators. They help prioritize, allocate, monitor, coach, problem solve, make decisions. But AI can now increasingly participate in many of those activities. So previously, when we look at technology, a lot of it was more productivity based. How do we get people to work faster? And how do we automate some of those pieces? AI now can increasingly help us think, analyze, create, decide, coach, learn, and even execute in some situations, which changes the whole concept and the conversation as well. And the question we should be asking is, if AI can increasingly participate in this work of management, where does the manager add most value? And I think a lot of people are going down that line already. So hopefully we're on the right way, or right wavelength. So I've pulled together 4 signals that I think most of us working in HR and people should be paying attention to, not because they're predictions, because they're actually happening now. So they're red flags that you should be aware of and looking at. Number 1 is AI is already inside your organization. And this is important. AI adoption isn't politely waiting for any strategic leadership, HR to finish their strategies. It's not waiting for IT to finalize the policy and what great looks like. It's not waiting for L&D to launch the learning pathways. People are using it already, both within their personal lives and their work. Sometimes openly, sometimes quietly, sometimes brilliantly, and probably occasionally pretty terribly as well. So the question that we should be asking or moving from is, should our people use AI, to how do we help our people use AI well and in the right way? Because we know they're going to be using it, and they are using it. People are using it already. You can see that in the chat. The second signal is the workforce model itself is beginning to change. So historically, managers are considered as managers of people. But I think there's a move, and managers are going to become orchestrators of work and how that work could be completed. So that links together people, technology, AI agents, and external partners together. So imagine we give a manager something to achieve, so an outcome. What they may be thinking, so when you give them that action, that strategy to deliver on, they may be thinking, actually now, what is the best combination of resources available for me to deliver this? Which has changed from who in my team am I going to give this task to? It requires a hugely different skill in itself. Now, gone backwards. And signal 3 is a statistic that I think is important to remember. And it comes from Gallup's recent research from this year. And it found that frequent AI usage increases from 46 to 79% when employees strongly agree that their manager actively supports their team using it. Just think about that. So it's the same technology, same organization, potentially the same policies, ways of working, but it's a different manager. The manager is the activator of the AI and utilization within the organization itself. And adoption can shift dramatically. So we can buy the technology, we can create the policy, we can run the training, but ultimately it's our managers who are our biggest mechanism through which the AI becomes everyday behavior. So think about the technology that you're investing in and what organizations invest in, not just yourselves and your organizations, but more broadly. Where does the majority of the investment go? Most likely it's the tool that you're using. And alongside that, what they do is they give you a 60-minute workshop for the managers to show them how to use it. And that is it. But perhaps that needs to be reconsidered as we move forward. Perhaps the split of the investment needs to be moved around. And number 4, so it brings us to the uncomfortable piece, which is within the same research. So Gallup's latest CHRO research found that 50% aren't confident in their manager's ability to guide employees' use of AI. And 57% are now specifically providing AI training for managers. So if we put those two sides together, managers are incredibly important to adoption, and we're not convinced they're ready. That's a gap. And I think that's a really important challenge for organizations, not just HR, not just leadership, it's the whole organization. And it will be over the next few years to make sure we close that gap in how it works and how it rolls out. So let's look at this practically. Because when we say AI is changing management, what do we actually mean? And we've seen some of the implications. Wow, Thursday morning, can't get these words out. We've seen how AI is impacting people's roles, even within your own. So meeting notes, things like that, drafting comms, it's all helping us actually get faster. So look at some of these traditional everyday activities, things like writing reports, preparing for one-to-ones, communication, decision-making. We're not suggesting that we hand all of these over to AI and automate it, far from it. But what we are suggesting is that division of labour changes, because AI can now draft reports, which allows the managers to interpret it. AI can now help you prepare for difficult conversations. The manager still has to have that conversation, but it help you prepare. And AI can generate options, and the manager can then exercise judgment as part of that itself. So that's how it's all changing. And that's where we, the human plus AI becomes really interesting. It's like having a personal assistant, a coach, a mentor, an extra pair of hands at your disposal at any time. And ever-increasing complexity, I personally always seek simplicity. So this is why we've created this very simple way of looking at it and thinking about the balance and relationship between human and AI within management. And there's three things that come together to create that approach. That's automate, augment, and amplify. So three things that we should consider when we're looking at the balance between them. The first one is automate. So there are things that managers spend time doing today that frankly aren't the reason why we promoted them to be managers in the first place. Things like admin, summarizing, scheduling. If technology can be can responsibly remove some of that burden from them, brilliant. Because one of the biggest complaints we hear from managers is, I don't have enough time to actually manage people. So let's not immediately view automation as a threat. It could create capacity. Then we've got augment. So this is where I think it gets really interesting. Not AI instead of manager, but it's actually AI blended together with your manager. So what we can improve. So things like planning, analysis, preparing for decisions, preparing feedback, problem solving. AI can become incredibly useful thinking partner. It can challenge you, it can generate alternatives, it can spot patterns that you miss, it can challenge your own bias, and it can ask questions and it can help you prepare. But the human remains involved and the endpoint for anything that is making a big change or a difference. So rather than asking, can AI do this? What we should be asking is, could AI and human, the combination, do this better together? And then we have the third part, which is amplify. And this is the bit as people leaders we should give the most focus to, because if AI gives managers capacity back, what do we want them to do with it? We most likely want them to do some of the critical management skills like coach, connect, motivate, develop, help navigate ambiguity, the things that actually make someone say, I've got a fantastic manager. Nobody's ever left a meeting or left an engagement survey comment saying, my manager produces incredibly efficient and clear meeting summaries. That's not what people remember. They remember the manager who believed in them, the one that challenged them, the one that helped them through something difficult and helped them to grow. That's the opportunity that we need to amplify within this balance as we go through. So I want you to imagine something. Tomorrow morning, every manager in your organization gets 5 hours back every single week because of the use of AI. No catch. What would you want them to do? So put one thing into the chat, just one word or a section of words, one thing in the chat that you'd like to see more of. Would you like them to spend more time with their people? Would you like them to start to think more strategically? Would you like them to develop your people? Would you like them to have better conversations? What would you like to see more of if they had those 5 hours back every week? Meaningful one-to-ones with their teams and talent reviews. Yes, absolutely, Sam. That's one thing I've heard more and more recently is one-to-ones are slipping. Don't have those regular catch-ups. Engaging more with their teams, listening, enable their teams, people interactions, strategic thinking. Have non-formal one-to-ones. That's definitely one. Those catch-ups are vital, and vital for having great feedback conversations with people. Strategic thinking needs to be more visible, absolutely. And again, more visibility, even in a world where hybrid working is more common, remote working is more common. How do we increase that visibility and make sure that they support their people? Brilliant, thank you so much. I've tried to keep up with as many of the comments coming through whilst I'm looking at different screens, but hopefully nobody has written more meetings or wanting 5 more hours of reporting, unless obviously that's part of their role. What I think we've collectively said is most of the answers aren't about technology themselves. They're about humanity and actually that connection piece, which I think is so important. The catch-ups, the one-to-ones, the visibility, time to have better relationships. I think this gives us the perfect opportunity to build that back. But there's another side of this, because we can get really excited about the opportunity. Our people may not necessarily feel the same way. So Deloitte this year has found that 18% of UK workers believe their organisation manages change, such as new technology implementation effectively. So only 18% feel that they implement technology effectively. And 76% say their well-being has suffered from too much change. So we're introducing AI into organisations where people are already experiencing enormous amounts of change, and they have done over the last couple of years, and people will respond differently. So some people may think this is brilliant, this will save me hours. For others, they may be feeling that this is eventually going to replace me. Again, same technology, completely different emotional response. And managers are sitting right in the middle of that. They need to navigate the drive from the organization to utilize more of this technology, but also support their people to make sure that that change is impacted or implemented effectively, and it supports their people's well-being. And this is an example of how we feel it's been done well within one organization. And one real example of what it looks like in practice. We've been working with one organization where the conversation initially could have easily have been, how do we teach everybody to utilize AI? How do we teach them to use it effectively? But we deliberately moved beyond that and started asking questions like, what capabilities do people actually need to thrive in an increasingly digital and AI-enabled organization? And also, does everyone need the same thing? Because the answer was clearly no. An individual contributor needs something very different from a specialist. A manager needs something different from a strategic leader. So rather than creating generic AI training, we started to define the skills and attributes that were required for these different persona groups across the organization. And what we did was embed the skill development into careers and development pathways. So we were aligning the capabilities that they needed as an organization, but would help those people develop in order to maximize technology as for both their role, but also for the client itself. And I mean, I could talk about this particular project all day, but let's have a look at the manager persona in a little bit more detail. I think it's particularly interesting, but also gives us a bit of an insight into the development that we need managers to be moving towards. When we looked at the skills that managers needed within this particular organization, we can break them down into these 6 characteristics. We needed them to be a user. So they need to be confident using AI themselves. And they can't be people who potentially are shying away from it. They need to be those early adopters, the people who are leading the way into utilization. But they also need to be a champion. They need to be the people who create the energy and momentum around adoption, get people excited about using it, and also supporting them in using that. And that leads into the enabler. So actually helping people experiment, so giving them this time, the space to learn, to try and fail and learn and move forward. That's a really important one because it's a new technology. We're all getting used to it. There's sometimes people use it well, some people who don't. Sometimes we don't use it well, everyone. So that enabler is really important, a really important factor. They're also the challenger. So they don't blindly accept whatever AI gives them or challenges the way in which it's utilized within their team. They challenge it back and make sure it is the absolutely right way to use it for them and their team and their organization. They're also the protector. So that leads again to the challenger, but protects the human ethics. It looks at the risk. It also looks at the accountability where human judgment needs to remain. So people aren't blindly just using AI for everything. we need to make sure we keep that human judgment within the process. And there's also the connector. So that's where they connect the technology with people, with customers, with organizational outcomes. There's a factor that I will come to later, which sometimes drives me a little bit crazy when people apologize for using AI. It's a tool, and if it's used responsibly, everyone is using it. If they connect it with their people, their customers, it all comes together in this as well. So notice what we're not saying. They don't need to become an AI engineer. This is primarily about it isn't about becoming more technical. It's becoming a different kind of manager in itself. Sorry, Nick, I'm just reading your comment. At first, we can take out AI from this. Exactly, Nikki, you're exactly right. This is how what makes a great manager, and you could take AI completely out of this and say, what are the factors that do make a great manager? Because with all this technology, nothing really has changed. It's just actually how do we make sure that the managers are doing the right things and actually connecting with people and developing people in the right way. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there as well, which is great. So thank you so much for sharing. And this gives us a bit of something to think about and to reflect on. Are we enabling or developing our managers to be AI users or AI enablers? Because they're very different. So an AI user could be, how can this make my job easier? Whereas an AI enabler would ask, how can I use this to help my team perform better? Where should I use it? Where shouldn't I use it? How do I help someone who's nervous about it? Again, that's a really nice one to do, is actually supporting people to utilize it when they're not particularly comfortable in doing it, and things like, where does human judgment remain? And if we expect managers to answer those questions, we need to equip them with the ability to answer them. Which brings us on to the practical bit. So we are going to go into the practical bit, which is the human AI playbook that we've created as part of this. And there's 5 factors I'd encourage you to use and take back to your organization as well. So number 1 is to define. So before we create another training program, define what great management looks like. So Nikki, as you said, you've jumped the gun, you're straight in there. Define what great management looks like in your organization, because it will be slightly different and have slightly nuance as well. And make sure it has the balance of human and AI. So what do you want managers to own? Where should AI augment? Where does the human element remain? And also what new capability is required for them to lead within this more modern ways of working. Looking at existing management frameworks, whether that's a competency framework, capability framework, or it's just factors that you need managers to do, whether it's behaviours, values. Was it designed for the world that we're in now and that we're moving into? Because if the expectation has changed, the framework probably needs to evolve with that as well. And it will constantly evolve. So look for ways in which we can build agility into it. Number 2 is enable. So please don't simply give everyone an AI license, run a 1-hour session showing them buttons and tell them to let it rip. Because what we need to do is give managers role-specific use cases. So show them how it makes their job better and what they need to do and how they do it. So before a one-to-one, use it to prepare some questions. Before a difficult conversations, use it to rehearse. If you haven't used the chat function, so the voice chat function on AI before, it is rather spooky to start with, but it's an incredible tool. And someone mentioned holiday planning earlier. I even used it to polish up on my French ahead of my holiday this year. So actually the possibilities are endless around what you could do and how you can have a conversation with it to practice. But also we can help with things like planning. So ask it to challenge your assumptions. Managers need to have that moment where they think, this actually makes me a better manager. And it really is a valuable tool for me and the way in which I work. Because that's where adoption starts becoming meaningful and they drive it themselves. Third, we need to be really clear about where the human judgment remains. There are rules and policies protecting this, especially within GDPR data, ways of automated processing, but we need to be clear for us as an organisation as well about where human judgment remains, where performance decisions, sensitive conversations, well-being, ethics, those elements need to be protected and ring-fenced. AI might inform these and support a manager have better conversations within them, but there are places where accountability needs and must remain human. And I think we need to teach managers the slightly different question around, can AI do this, to should AI do this? That's a very different question, and something that, as ethically, if you get it right in regards to the foundations of utilization, that should be something that is easily understood and implemented. Number 4 is permission. So it's creating space and permission to experiment. And it's definitely a cultural factor, this. So we need to ensure that people have the opportunity to give it a go, let them fail, let them share the learning from what's happened, let them learn from that and improve moving forward. Because again, that's where real evolution and learning occurs. But by creating manager communities, what they can do is share prompts, share examples of where it's worked well or not so well, share the things that went horribly wrong, but also the things that went really, really well. Because that's how the ecosystem will learn, because you want people to start sharing what they have found really useful to them so they can start to utilize it across. But most importantly, please stop apologizing for using AI. We've all seen it, where you've gone into a meeting and someone's gone, oh, full disclosure, I did use AI to help me with this. Oh, it's an AI brain dump. Why are we whispering like we've cheated on an exam or something like that? If it's an approved tool and it's being used responsibly in the right way and it's helped you create a better outcome, fantastic. We should be encouraging that behavior and not creating a culture where people hide it, because otherwise what you'll have is those confident early adopters racing ahead while everyone else sits and waits to be told whether they're allowed to join in, or worse, sharing the wrong information on an open source platform, which again could be really, really difficult. Sam, you comment, you said, my boss keeps saying, is this your or AI? So yours or AI? Absolutely. Well, look, people do ask that, and that's what we need to do, is actually change the mindset. Yes, you may have used AI to support it, but as long as you put your eyes on it and you've processed it and you think it's a good quality, as you said, if it's good quality, and who cares? It's got done faster and it works really well. Right then, lost my place now. And finally, we then build the human advantage. So please don't let the investment in AI capability come to the extent of the investment in human capability, because look at what's increasing, or the increasing needs for managers. We need more judgment, we need more curiosity, we need people to coach, we need empathy, we need critical thinkers. We need people to have those courageous conversations, for people to manage the change process in itself. So these are the future skills needed for future leaders. AI does not make those things irrelevant. I would argue it actually makes them more valuable and needed more. Because if AI removes some of the transactional burden of management, then these are the things that differentiate genuinely brilliant managers in themselves. And there's one thought that I want to leave you with, which is, if the aim of AI is to give managers more capacity, we better make sure they know what to do with that extra capacity and how to fill it. It's really important one, because again, you need to make sure we get that balance as we go through. And that's where I want to leave you. There's an enormous temptation at the moment to start with the technology, but I encourage those of you who are working in HR and leadership positions to start somewhere else. So don't start with AI. Start with the manager you need AI to help them become. So start with that manager and look at what makes a great manager, the define piece as well. Understand them as a manager, what those characteristics is, understand what they need to automate, where AI should augment them, and be deliberate about what you want them to amplify. Be really clear about that as well. And build their confidence with that technology. And at the same time, invest in those capabilities that differentiate them, because the future isn't human versus AI. The opportunity is human and AI together. And our managers could be one of the most important groups in making that combination work, because they have the biggest impact within their teams and the people they work with. So we've ended the session today touching briefly on the future skills of managers. If this is something that you would like to know more of, it's a key topic. Joe will be looking at the future skills for future teams. So what capabilities organisations need between now and 2030, and how actually to build skill strategy around them. So taking that manager piece and then driving that down into those teams around what those skills would be and how that looks. This webinar picks up almost exactly from where we left off today, and it continues the conversations from manager down to that team level itself. And I know that I know that we have had lots of questions, lots of comments coming through. I'm just solo today, so I'm trying to keep up as many as I possibly can. But let me just close this for everyone. We will be sharing responses and continuing the discussions on our WhatsApp group. So please join the Let's Talk Talent Hub. That gives you all of the latest resources, updates, webinars, whatever's coming through. And if you would like to continue the conversation, then please do join our Let's Talk People community page. So follow both the QR codes on your phone and you'll be taken right there. But for now, thank you very much for spending your Thursday morning with me. Please feel free to reach out, connect. We'd love to hear how you found the session today, but also we have a little bit of time left. So if anyone has any questions or would like to keep the conversation going here, then I will absolutely hang around and keep the conversation going. Jennifer, there'll be a recording shared. There'll be a recording shared of the session today, so you'll be able to see that and view that on YouTube. So it'll be shared on our Let's Talk Talent People page in itself. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It's been a really good Thursday morning. I do apologise again for the drilling outside if anyone did get disturbed by that, and hopefully people's sounds did come through. So thank you again all for joining. I know there's some questions around what AI systems people are using. I'll tell you what, I'll do a poll on the Let's Talk People community page just to see what people are using as part of that. I know as an organisation ourselves, we use a mixture of different AI platforms, just because we know that different AI platforms will give us different outputs and support us in different ways. So yes, we do use others, such as Gemini is a great one that we use that's embedded within Google. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to stay on for an extra couple of minutes. So if anyone does, please do. But again, if you want to ask me privately, please do reach out on LinkedIn or even on the page, and the Let's Talk Talent People page as well. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you on the next session soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.